Now we are going to talk about the latest developments in the Middle East and the President-elect Trump's take on the situation. We have Ross Feingold with us, joining us from all the way Taiwan, Taipei. Ross, thank you so much for joining us once again here on A News. We have quite the agenda again today, so let's start. Given the recognition of the U.S. that the Jerusalem is Israel's capital in 2017. What implications do such unilateral actions have on international law and global perceptions of American impartiality in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
We have to be frank. The United States under President Trump, when it comes to Israel issues, is not impartial. They are very pro-Israel. And the first Trump administration showed that. And I would expect the second Trump administration to be equally pro-Israel, as was the first Trump administration. And the people that Trump has named to his foreign policy team, including the nominee for U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, I think they generally can be described as being pro-Israel. However, at the same time, Trump also had excellent relations with other countries in the Arab world. He certainly had very good relations with the Persian Gulf countries as well. So I think that we should expect that those relationships are going to be replicated. Unlike other parts of the world, and specifically Western Europe comes to mind, I think most of the Arab countries are comfortable with Trump being the president again, notwithstanding the pro-Israel tilt that his administration is going to have.
Well, actually, let's talk about his stance, and it is the possibility of it being changing as well, because we know that the Trump was, in his first administration, as you underlined, that he was pro-Israeli. But right now, as we know, when the Biden took the office, we know that Netanyahu greeted Biden for that, and then Trump, quote unquote, felt really betrayed by this. And then he said he doesn't want to be involved with Netanyahu anymore. But of course, the politics are politics, and every day a promise can change in international politics. When you reconsider all of these, what would you say about his stance to Netanyahu when he takes the office in the late January?
I think the excellent relationship and bilateral communication that existed between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump in the first Trump administration will be replicated. Yeah, Trump was angry that Netanyahu congratulated Biden after the 2020 election, but Trump very often, he gets over this when he's angry at people. I mean, he's been angry at plenty of Republicans as well. Marco Rubio comes to mind. They originally had a very bad relationship, but now Trump has nominated Rubio to be the Secretary of State. So I think in the interest of smooth U.S.-Israeli relations, that Trump is really going to put behind him that incident when he was angry at Netanyahu. And I would expect when it comes to the Gaza war, that Trump is going to give Netanyahu a lot of latitude to continue the war, unless the ongoing ceasefire talks should reach a positive conclusion in the coming days. But if it doesn't, and the war is still going on come January 20th, I don't think Trump is going to be criticizing Netanyahu over that.
Well, we are going to certainly expect a shift inside like this, but let's see how it is going to unfold when he actually takes the office, considering Trump's apparent indifference to the Middle East and of his focus on ending wars to clear headlines. How might this affect U.S. engagements with long-term issues like Palestinian statehood and Iranian influence in the region? Because he wants to say that the wars are over and it's all because of me. So what would you say about that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because during his first term, President Trump clearly showed a reluctance to use U.S. military force. That doesn't mean he never okayed missions, and the assassination of high-level Iranian general or al-Qaeda or ISIL persons comes to mind. So he wasn't entirely reluctant to use U.S. military force when the situation arose. But he's clearly uncomfortable with open-ended, large deployments, which Trump views as a bit different than a mission to assassinate a terrorist leader. So Trump, in his first term, he wanted to withdraw troops from Syria, and he was persuaded by his team, including the defense secretary at the time, Mathis, that he shouldn't do that, that it was important that the troops remain in Syria. But we just had this recent revelation that what we thought was 1,000 troops in Syria is actually 2,000. And I would expect Trump to be very critical of that. And his team is going to have to give him a really good justification to keep those troops in Syria Otherwise, Trump is going to look to withdraw that. And that would be consistent with Trump's approach. He says he's going to invest in the military, but he's clearly reluctant to have open-ended U.S. deployments of a large number of troops in the Middle East.
Andy, let's talk about the potential of the withdrawal of American forces from Donald Trump. Do you think that it would affect or have an impact on Syria? And he has already stated that Turkey should be monitoring the developments since it is directly affected by whatever happens inside Syria. What would you say about that?
The good news is most of the factions to join a new national army under the central government's Ministry of Defense. The bad news there is that the Syrian Democratic Forces and the YPG in the north of Syria did not agree to join this. Turkey looks at the YPG as a terrorist faction, even though it's backed by the United States. So there's certainly some risk that if the United States does depart from its presence in northern Syria, that there could be more fighting between the new central government's national army and with the YPG or the Syrian Democratic Forces in the northeast. So that situation certainly has some volatility, and it will be accelerated if the United States does withdraw. But Trump might still want to withdraw, and he's going to say that's not really a situation that the United States needs to mediate. And then we'll see what occurs with these different militia and whether or not the central government's new national army would use military force to bring those militia under its control. So there's certainly some possibility for volatility in northeast Syria should the United States withdraw its troops.
Well, Ross, thank you so much for joining us and answering our questions. Pleasure having you here.
Thank you. Thank you.